Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators football podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by my partner in crime, Mr. Randy. Randy, how we doing? The weather getting to you tonight, or are we holding in there okay?
Nah, man, we're holding. B. Good evening. Good evening. We're holding. Got a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, some squalls, some gusts. All is well.
Good deal, good deal. Yeah, it's a little frightening for winter down here in Florida, but we're holding our own. So
Right.
tonight we are going to have a little discussion around some other things that are a little frightening, known as the transfer portal. Just kidding,
Wow.
but we're gonna have a full discussion around this. Obviously, it's become a big part of college football in general, and certainly an important part of recruiting and really I think a necessary piece as we'll have discussions around tonight. So that's going to be the topic of the pod for this evening. We're really going to kind of get into where Florida stands with that and kind of what things are going on and kind of how we view it as a piece both of recruiting and also as, of course, a place that players are obviously going to go to now, as we've seen going forward. So we're going to discuss some of that as we go through this episode. So as always, we'll kind of walk you through here our mission, our vision, and our agenda for the pod. So our mission, as always, is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. We want to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will always be based on review of film where possible. In this case, it's going to be a little more based around what we've seen as far as transfer portal grades and things of that nature. And while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some type of fact. We'll also have evaluation of strategy and tactics where appropriate, obviously, and observation of player personnel decisions, which clearly come into play here, as well as on the field execution. So our agenda for tonight is going to consist of just a transfer portal definition. We'll just kind of look at that and as to what this actually is now that it's changed in the past few years. We'll then have a discussion of outgoing transfers from the team. We're not going to discuss any other incoming. We've talked about some of them on the signing day pod. We're going to leave that alone for the time being. We will discuss that when we kind of review where we think the roster is going into next season, which we will do here in an upcoming pod, probably in the next 2 or 3 episodes that we do. One of those next 2 or 3 will contain that, and we'll kind of look at whether or not we think each position group has upgraded or not from last year, and we will incorporate the transfers in with that. But we want to let this period get kind of fully settled. Obviously, players can no longer transfer except from the bowl games that have just completed. Those guys have an extended window, but otherwise the portal has closed for transfers to exit. So for now, we're just kind of waiting on the guys that haven't settled somewhere yet to see if they will end up finding a destination with Florida, obviously, for those that we're still looking at. So we're going to wait for that to settle down before we talk to that. But we will discuss the outgoing transfers from the team. We will then have a discussion around the importance of the portal now with NIL factoring into recruiting the way that it does, right? So we talked about how much we feel NIL and more than feel how much NIL is playing a role in recruiting now from the high school level and how that kind of increases some of the importance of the portal. We're going to talk to that. And then also to kind of end things out, we're going to have a little discussion around how does one define who is actually a Gator at this point in time, right? Now that the portal operates the way it does, and you can kind of come be a Gator for a while and then not, and then maybe you were somewhere else and then you become a Gator later, right? What defines who is actually a Gator, right? And so we're going to have a little conversation around that. And then we'll close it out with our sign off, of course. So to start things off here, let's define the transfer portal. So the NCAA defines the portal as a private database. Interesting that they call it private because you can find out who's in the portal very easily by searching it, but they define it as private, that contains the names of student athletes in all college sports at the Division 1, 2, and 3 levels. The portal was launched in 2018 as a communication tool to help give athletes more say in the process of switching schools. So the steps here involved are to enter the portal, the athletes notify their school of the intent to transfer, right? They file paperwork. The school's compliance department has 48 hours to put an athlete's name into the portal after that paperwork is filed. Athletes receive an automated email when their information has been entered into the portal, and then the original school later submits an academic and athletic history for those athletes for other schools to obviously have as reference. The transfer portal database stores the names of the student athletes across all college sports who have entered, sortable by sport and player name. The full list of names is not available to the public. Again, that is said multiple times, and yet I can go on right now and see every player in the portal ranked by On3. So don't really understand the private nature that they make of this, quote unquote. However, that is the definition as it reads. So having said that, that is your definition of what the transfer portal is. Again, it was designed because there were a lot of kids that were trying to transfer for various different reasons, whether it be playing time, greater opportunity. Maybe there's a group of 5 school kid that feels like he wants an opportunity at a Power 5 school instead, right? That he wasn't able to get. And there was basically a drive for more transfer ability outside of just, kids that were at junior colleges, right? Because that was the big push for a long time. There was, if you wanted to transfer, you had to go down to a JUCO college first, play a year, and then you could transfer out. See example, Cam Newton, right? That was the old school model, that's how you had to do it. Well, now obviously you don't have to do it that way anymore. So to that end, we have a lot of transfers coming out of the class this year, and we're going to have a little discussion around each of them and how they impact Florida's roster and whether or not they frankly helped or hurt us by their transfer decision. So we will start this thing off and kind of have a conversation around this. We'll start with the first one on my list is our quarterback, our third string quarterback from this season. Actually, he became second string quarterback, I should say, which is Max Brown. And he has transferred to Charlotte. So your thoughts on him, Randy? Did that help us or hurt us with Max Brown transferring out?
Good question, B. So with Max, what was tough about Max was we didn't get to see his full ability as a dual threat QB, right? He was ranked very highly as a dual threat QB coming out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for all intents and purposes, could have done some really unique things in Napier's option plan. So with that, looking at what we have coming in, the strength of Mr. Lagway, the return of Mertz, for me, it's going to be a help. Mertz agreed to come back because of Lagway and leadership and helping him through the reins. And so with Max out of the picture, no disrespect, Max, there's a lot more time to focus on that relationship, focus on the development of Lagway without having any extracurriculars regarding somebody else saying, hey, I'm the next guy up. I deserve some snaps. I deserve some time.
Yeah, I hear you there. This is an interesting one for me. So this isn't one that I necessarily would give a lot of thought to initially, but when you look at the roster and the way it's currently constructed, the only 2 quarterbacks we have are Mertz and Lagway, and that's not enough. As far as scholarship goes, we do have a walk-on, but that doesn't really qualify, right? That guy's not going to play. So you really need 3 viable scholarship quarterbacks, in my opinion, or at least 3 viable guys that could play. So I'm going to say, as long as we land another one through the portal, which there is talk that this guy from South Alabama is actually going to come as a walk-on, but he would be of that caliber where he could theoretically play if he had to, right? And as long as we get that, I'm with you, it helps. Should we not land a viable third string quarterback, then I'm actually going to say this hurts. So this is kind of one that jury's out for me on, because if we don't have enough depth at the position because Max left, then that actually hurts us. But only in that circumstance. For the record, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm with you. I think it helps. So I'll lean toward help for now, barring something weird where we don't end up with a third quarterback that's actually viable to play.
I was going to say, don't go neutral on me, because the other thing too is, and like you said, we don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see what happens with this Yale QB kid. What's his name? Aiden Warner.
Yeah, that's another potential option as well. Yeah, as long as we get one, I'm fine. As long as we get one viable third string option, which is tough, right? Because you're basically coming in to be third string, and you know it, right? Yeah. So that is hard. But as long as we get that, then yes, I agree. This helps you. You probably freed up, a roster spot that was probably better to have for somebody who's, a legit third string candidate, right? So yeah, I'm with you there. All right, who you got next?
So you feel more comfortable with 3? Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you have to have 3.
Yeah. 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 I got you. I got you. Depth. Sure. All right. How about this name? A little bit controversial wherever you come from, but Trevor Etienne. B, I'll
Yes,
ask you
sir.
now. Help or hurt?
Yeah, it has to be her, right? Now, while I do feel our running back room is very strong, very deep, obviously getting Cam Carroll back is going to be huge, right? Hopefully he's able to return to form after the ACL. But that'll be a huge addition back. Obviously, the guys we have coming in, as we already discussed, right, with Daniels and Baugh are great additions. Webb, I'm excited to see him come back for his sophomore season, and then of course, nothing wrong with Montrell clearly as the lead back. The room is deep, but Etienne's playmaker. There's no doubt about it, and this never doesn't hurt. There's no way around it. Um, Especially going to Georgia. We'll have that conversation in a minute. Um, that hurts extra. But at the end of the day, no matter where he went, this hurt, right? It hurts to lose a guy of his talent and ability off your roster. There's just no way around it.
Yeah. As much as the hate and the spitefulness wants to come out and say, "Help! Fine, get out of here." No, no, I am going to say hurt because here's the thing: when you look at the number of touches he had on the year and what he did, right, just shy of 800 yards. He was top 30 in the nation in rushing yards per carry, right? When you look at all those other things, and more so with him, because obviously we think of Montrell as that bigger back, the ground and pound. Trevor, a little smaller, finesse and speed. We saw the breakout speed against Tennessee. We saw it a
Yeah.
couple times this year through a couple different schools, and so he has that ability. And so, outside of that, I would just say, from pure stat perspective, the name perspective, how he carried himself on campus, how he carried himself in the team, that's why I would say it's a hurt. So I'm with you there, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, I think you have to be. I mean, you're not being honest with yourself if you say that one doesn't hurt. I mean, there's just no way around it as far as hurts the team, right? Whether it hurts us personally or not, that's maybe a different story. But from a team standpoint, that hurts your roster when you lose that kind of talent. There's just no way around it. So,
Yep.
all right, next on the list, I have your buddy down there, Mr. Caleb Douglas, wide receiver, who is transferring to Texas Tech. This is an interesting one. So this is another one where jury's out a little bit for me. We're not short on depth at wide receiver from like an overall position standpoint, but I'll tell you one thing we are short on, and that's height. No pun intended, right? We're a little short at
Wow.
wide receiver. And Caleb was not short, right? 6'3", if I remember correctly. He had the ability to go up and get some of those 50-50 balls, right? Really be that kind of jump ball receiver, kind of guy you could throw to in the end zone, right? He had that ability, and we currently do not possess that on the roster. And that hurts. So again, this is one where if we do not have a player that we're able to get through the portal that can replace that particular skill set, and that's really all that we're missing. But if we do not gain that back, then this one becomes a hurt for me. Right now, I'll say it's a help in terms of freeing up the space for some other guys, some younger talent to be able to get on the field and play. That part is fine and that helps. But if we can't replace literally the height that we lose in Caleb, then I think this ends up being a hurt, and that jury's still out. We're in the market for a couple. We'll see what happens. There's one in particular that I'm pretty high on, but I'll it's kind of wait and see mode right now. It's very coin flippy as to where that goes. So we're gonna have to see, man. So yeah, so I'll say help tentatively for now, but it could be a hurt.
Man, so I view this completely oppositely. I would say it's a help all the way. No disrespect to
Really?
Caleb, great kid, great attitude. My son's name, very fond of that name. But outside of that, he went back to be home. Went back to Texas to be home. He's been in
Hmm.
the system a couple of years. He never fully developed. Now, truth be told, when you look at this year, I thought if he did not get hurt in that Kentucky game, he probably could have had a bigger role this year, especially with all the attention on Pearsall. And then when he was implemented, as we know from a touch standpoint, we wanted to see more of that. But here's the thing about Caleb. Never was that eliteness that we needed. And when you look at height, we've never really been laden with taller players. I'll still take that speed all day long. And so if we have the speed coming in that we think that we have, that quote unquote track speed coming in, I'm okay with that. And the only example I'll give you is i.e. Tariq Hill, right? That's it. If we can
Yeah,
get them in
well,
space, if they can shake, bake, turn on a dime and do what they need to do to shed, I don't care about the height. Catch the ball, take off, and let's go.
I like it. I like the take. That's a great spin and a great way to look at it. We'll see if that proves out. And assuming that, well, I shouldn't say assuming, if we don't get another receiver that does have some height, then we'll see if you're right, because that's currently the state that we're in. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I like the take. I like the take. Who you got next?
All right, my man. Here is from the old tribe himself, Ty Chikawa Bowman. So help or hurt?
Yeah, so this one's a help for me. Saw the field very little, if at all, last year, despite a little bit of preseason hype. Napier had some good things to say about him in camp, and he didn't really see the field. So that was a little perplexing to me, but hey, it is what it is. This is a help. This frees up a roster spot, right? This frees up a scholarship for another receiver, or anybody else for that matter that we need to give it to. Pretty straightforward. Didn't see much of the field. Didn't make much of an impact. It helps.
Help all the way. You said everything I needed to say. You read my mind. Well done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Next on the list, a pretty feel good story, as far as when he was playing here, but nonetheless, it is what it is. Tight end Jonathan Odom to Eastern Michigan, he has announced as his transfer destination. Which some of these, you kind of say and you go, okay, well, that's not a big name school. So you see that and you're like, all right. And that kind of tells you something, right, about the talent level of some of these guys, in all likelihood, if that's some of the schools they ended up at. But nonetheless, help or hurt Jonathan Odom.
Again, great kid, great demeanor, good personality, actually pretty funny on camera. A few clips that I saw of him this past fall. Outside of that, help all the way. He had some great moments, and the thing, from a body perspective, great. From a hands perspective, questionable for me. From a speed perspective, a little bit slower than your granddaddy's molasses. So on that basis, I think he's really going to help Eastern Michigan. He's going to be a great threat up there. But down here, SEC, from what a tight end needs to be, and of course we were spoiled with Mr. Pitts. Again, all the best to you, Jonathan. No disrespect, but that's going to help us.
Yep, right there with you. We have a decently talented tight end room that's going to get more talented as Amir comes in. Actually, hearing some rumors that we might even be looking for another tight end in the portal.
Yeah.
This is a help all the way. I mean, again, definitely had some impact on the field early in the season, but that waned as the year went on, and Arliss got more involved, right? And you saw that clearly there's a talent gap there, and I think the speed factor, as you mentioned, is just too much to overcome there. Just not the level of speed you need for that position in the SEC if you're going to be effective. So all the best, good kid, like you said. No ill will, but that helps. So who you got next?
Bingo. All right, my man. Let's look at another tight end. Let's stay with tight ends here. Andrew Savinea going to Nevada. What do you think? Help or hurt?
Definitely help. Again, tight end room is fairly full. At least from a depth standpoint, we're okay there, certainly. And I think the talent in the room exceeds what Mr. Savina or Savinea, however you pronounce it,
Bless you. Yeah.
currently possesses. Again, no disrespect intended. It's just there's a certain level that you need to have, again, to play, and I don't think he was quite up to that task. And again, it's no disrespect. Wish him well at Nevada. It helps.
Yeah, echo 100% help. The only thing it hurts, again, these are some quality kids, some good personalities, but outside of that, from a pure football standpoint, roster standpoint, skill standpoint, position standpoint, help all the way.
Yep, agreed. All right. Next on my list is the offensive lineman, Mr. Jalen Farmer, going to Kentucky. Help or hurt?
Help, uh, just like what our offensive line needs. So so when you look at you look at everything that we've gone through this year on offensive line, and we talked about this timeless amounts. The offensive line is probably needs the biggest rebuild out of anything that we have, and so with Jalen. He's got some great size. He had some great ability, but really limited with time this year at all. So on that basis, frees up a spot. We got some great talent coming in to develop some other players. So on that basis, for me, it's a help B.
Yep, right there with you. I think it's a help. Little interesting that he went to Kentucky. Think this might have been a depth add for them more so than anybody they necessarily expect to see the field a whole lot. But again, time will tell on that. Sometimes you don't know with these guys, but at the end of the day, again, it's a help. You want to upgrade the talent here. From both a starting and depth standpoint, right? And I think this helps us do that. So that's a help. Who's next?
Good deal. Good deal. On the list, let's see what we got. B, let's see what the O line. Jordan Herman actually going to Charlotte. I guess he doesn't like wearing sleeves either, like Biff, their head coach. But Jordan Herman, help or hurt?
Yeah, he wants to go keep blocking for Max Brown.
There you go.
Help all the way. Again, same thing here. You want to upgrade the talent. Same thing I just said. It's the exact same case. Um, Not somebody that was necessarily going to see the field a whole lot now or potentially in the future. That's a help.
Yeah, I have no qualms there. I think it's a very relatable on all points to Mr. Farmer. So yeah, help all the way.
Yep. Yep, agreed. Now we'll flip things around here and continue to talk about the O line and talk about Mr. Micah Mazuka, who is in the portal, though no transfer destination yet found. Help or hurt?
This was tough for me because I'm looking at what he did this year. I'm looking at overall, and here's the thing. I think we had a conversation around time, experience in the trenches, and I honestly would have welcomed him back to see what he was going to do in the fall of 24. So for
Yep.
me, for Micah, again, from a continuity stick, because offensive line, it's all about continuity and snaps and experience. So to me, that's a hurt.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
there
me.
with you. And first of all, apologies, I mispronounced his name again as I did for the first half of the season. It's Mazkua. Apologies.
Everybody did.
And
Everybody did.
um, but uh, but yeah, this has to be a hurt when you lose a starting offensive lineman who could have returned and played again and who was solid, right? He was solid. He was probably maybe the most consistent player we had on the O line. Really, he stayed
Maybe.
he stayed healthy, right? He was consistent, didn't give up a bunch of sacks, right? He was pretty good. His run blocking was pretty decent. We typically ran on his side of the line. Um, I that one hurts. No question about it, especially at a line that, continues to need talent and depth, right? We've talked about it. Now, again, we've brought in some talent through the portal and through recruiting, but recruiting typically doesn't produce on the O line their first year. So that, usually have to wait on. Maybe Fletcher can play first year, but he's a tackle, not a guard. So this is a loss. This is a loss for me. It definitely hurts. So who you got next?
All right, my man. Next up, let's stay on the O line. Last on the O line, we have Mr. Richie Leonard.
Yeah. This is another one. I'm gonna have to say hurt here again. Again, this is the other starting guard, right? So both starting guards from the season gone. That has to hurt again. This one kind of took me off guard. I mean, Mazkua wasn't exactly expected. This one was super unexpected for me. I think this is where you start to see that NIL impact, right? I don't understand why Richie would have left. Very confusing to me. Been a 4-year player, been there his whole career, started this year all year long, has seen plenty of field time, just head scratcher, right? This is the one that makes you think if it weren't for NIL that he wouldn't be going anywhere. But again, we can't know that, but why else would he leave, right? It's one of those things where when you can't figure it out, it's usually the answer, right? That's because what else makes sense, right? So, yeah, so I'm gonna have to go hurt here again. I don't think this hurts as badly. I don't think he was as good as Mazkua was, but decent. And again, losing decent pieces of an offensive line that was already rough, that's not great. That's not great. So I think this has to hurt.
Yeah, what was interesting for me was seeing how many snaps he had. And again, continuity. He was one of those pieces that would have added more to continuity moving forward.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that the school hasn't been announced. The other thing that I thought about was, okay, NIL, okay, for Richie, he's doing this a while, he's got size, he's got some abilities, but was he just fed up of the past 2 seasons and what happened and how the offensive line was just massively criticized? Just couldn't take it? I mean, is that an element? Was that an element to his decision? I don't know, but either way, yes, B, I have it as a hurt as well.
Yeah, I think so. And to your point, I guess if it was NIL related, you would anticipate that he would announce fairly soon.
Yeah.
But I don't know. ETN took a while to get his NIL stuff worked out with Georgia. So maybe
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a little while. I don't know. Sorry.
Fine.
Can't help but go there. All right, next on the
I
list,
know.
the other very big name is going to be on the D line, Mr. Princely, Uman to Ole Miss. Thoughts?
Hurt. That's it. Hurt. He should be going to the league. Real simple. We're going to talk about this later in the segment, but tampering. Sorry, can't throw a flag
Yeah.
on that because it's not policed. It's really tough because this past year I thought he could have been more special, and I think he would have been in all intents and purposes if he had his running mate on the opposite side, Mr. Boone, also adding to the scheme. So it's tough. I felt like he had a good season. Yes, I felt like you know what I wish we would have used him differently up front. I wish we didn't see him drop back as much. But either way, because of the type of person he is, because of the side, because of what he was growing into, the player he was growing into, coming into himself and his speed and his size and his technique, loss. Bottom line, it's a hurt.
So this is a hard one for me. I'm going to agree with you and say hurt because anytime you lose a talent like him, it has to hurt your roster. It's a similar thing to ETN. However, when you look at this room coming back at D-line, especially at edge, buddy, I'm excited about edge at Florida next year. We've
Sure.
got 5 viable edge rushers. 5. This year we had, 1. Maybe you could argue 2 to 3 with Searcy and Collins, but not really because they were freshmen and they weren't just ready yet. Those guys count next year for damn sure, but they didn't really count this year. They weren't there yet. They're not developed yet. They didn't have enough time yet. They're too young, too not strong enough yet. Man, we are stacked at edge next year. If you were worried about pass rush at Florida, I think those worries are going to get rectified next season. I would be shocked if they didn't. We are loaded at edge. So I'm going to say hurt because it's still talent that we lost. But to your point, he was going to go to the league. So we thought we were losing him anyway. So this is one of those where it's like, yeah, it hurts the roster, but it doesn't hurt me personally because I didn't expect him to stay. So it's kind of one of these where I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of ambivalent. Like it's another example, in my opinion, again, of NIL, though his comments didn't indicate that. He did a big interview. His comments didn't indicate that. Okay. You know, how much of that is solely based in fact? I don't know. He said all the right things in the interview to justify his decision. I felt like most of what he said was honest. I just feel like maybe there were some things left out. But again, I can't know that. That's obviously an inference and an opinion, and I can't back that up, so I'll leave it out. But yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, it has to hurt your roster when you lose talent that is as good as Princely. So again, wish him well. I would have wished him more well in the league because I think that's where he should have gone. But hey, his choice, right? So is what it is. All right, on to the next. Another D lineman, Mr. Chris McClellan to Mizzou.
So as much as I want to say hurt, I am going to say help. And so for me, my reasons are, other than outside of continuity, outside of familiarity with the system, I want to see big change up on that D line. And in addition to that, because of the talent that we have coming in and because of everything else that we've been developing, portal that's going to come over. For me, McClellan, Missouri hurts more than the fact that he's leaving, but he just never, for me, never developed into what I thought he could be on that line. And so for me, I'm going to say help because it frees up a spot to bring in someone younger, hungrier, and we can work on some of the other techniques and things like that through coaching. But for me, it's going to be a help on McClellan. What do you got, B?
Really tough one here for me. Guy popped his freshman year on film. Really popped. Really looked good. Did not pop near as much this past season. Had some plays, but was not the same explosive force on the interior of the D line. I'm still going to go hurt because, from a standpoint of the interior defensive line, we do not have the depth that I would like us to have there. I like the Slackman addition. We already talked about it. I think that's terrific. Obviously, Caleb Banks coming back really helps. However, we are still not as deep at interior defensive line as I would like us to be. It's not like edge, right? Edge, we're great. I love where we are. Interior defensive line, not so much. We lack depth there. I would have really liked to have McClellan back for that reason, even if he is not as good as we wanted him to be. It still would have been a nice depth piece to have. So I have to say hurt.
Gotcha. Okay.
Who you got next?
All right. Let's stay defensive line. Let's go, Mr. Will Norman.
Yeah. So this is another interior D-line piece, right? That had potentially some potential, but hadn't yet really seen the field, hadn't played a lot. Granted, that could have happened, could still happen for the team he's transferring to, which hasn't been announced yet. This is by far and away the guy who's been in the portal longest and has not announced the destination. So that's kind of interesting, other than maybe Mahalik. Mahalik might be the only one who's been in longer and hasn't announced the destination. So this one's a little bit head scratching as far as where he might end up and if we might see if he develops or not, because maybe we know and maybe we don't. But at the end of the day, I have to go help here because I can't. There's no production for me to evaluate to say that it hurts us. So I'm going to have to say help.
And you know what? I'm right there with you. And for me, the pure reason is, besides the roster spot on D-line, is the fact that look how long he's been in the portal and he has not been coveted. He is not.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh man, we got to go. Oh, Will Norman's in there. Have you seen his clip? Have you seen his film? We need to go get that.
Yep. It's fair. It's a fair point. That's a fair point.
That's all. That's all. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I like it. To a similar end, though hasn't been in the portal as long, another D lineman, Mr. Keenan Landry, help or hurt?
Yeah, Keenan's going to be help for me. I thought he was going to be really good as a backup or third, and apparently he dealt with some injuries here and there. But the other thing about him that I read about was just inconsistency when it came to his assignment. So as far as that goes, listen, if you need that, don't get me wrong. I know there's some complex schemes here and there, but if you need that much help, it's a help for you to be off and us freeing up a roster spot. So help.
Yeah, 100%. Was never going to be anything but a backup anyway, and clearly wasn't even doing such a great job with that based on your comments there. It's a help, frees up a roster spot. So I'm with you there. Who's next?
Yep. Next up, linebacker position, Scooby Williams.
Yes, to Florida West, also known as Texas A&M. So if it were not for our incoming recruiting class, and if it were not for Mr. Pup Howard, who we have acquired in the transfer portal, I know we said we weren't going to talk about players, but I'm going to mention that one in this case. I would have to say hurt because of the lack of depth that we possess at linebacker. I would have had no choice, right? Tejada Mitchell is gone. So even though I was not high on Mr. Mitchell, even though I liked him a lot as a human, not high on his play, in most cases. We were down to very limited depth at the linebacker position, and I would have felt like we couldn't afford to lose Scooby, regardless of the very many issues that he had last season. Now that we have acquired a linebacker in the portal who I believe is an upgrade from Scooby, quite frankly, we will see. We will see if we're correct about that, but I believe he's an upgrade from him. And we have acquired the talent that we have through the recruiting with Graham and Childs. This is a help for me. I'm wish him well and glad that we were able to free up the roster spot to get Pup in here. That's where I'm at with it, man. I am so sick and tired of seeing him pick the wrong gap and miss a tackle when he does. I'm uh, wish him well at Florida West. That's all I got for you. What do you have?
You know what? This was a head scratcher for me, but ultimately I will not be selfish and say help. What was really tough was understanding, pretty much what you said regarding the gaps, regarding some of the tackles or lack thereof. He did his best when, especially when Shamar went down. He was number 3rd overall in tackles, but again, Shamar went down after the Georgia game, so he had to step it up. And we just saw him miss time and time and time again. And just like we said, after the Kentucky game, he just was never the same for whatever reason. And we thought he could turn it around. And we had some flashes of brilliance, but just never could put it together. So on that basis, for those reasons, I'm going to say all the best to you, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. And it pains me that I can't say Scooby Snacks anymore. So outside of that,
yeah, we did lose a nice dad joke out of the pod for next season, but
right.
hey, we'll survive. I'd rather lose the dad joke and make some tackles.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Good enough indeed. All right, up next, safety Kamari Wilson, a very highly touted recruit, however, did not pan out for us. Going to Arizona State, help or hurt?
Man, this is talk about the rise and fall of the golden child, right? Very, very coveted as one of Napier's big gets his first year in Gaines, Vegas. Help, just when you look at Kamari on the off-field issues, the personality, the some of the other things that I won't get into here on the pod, help. Bottom line.
Yep. I'm with you on this one. Regardless of what happens at Arizona State or anywhere else that he plays, this is a help for Florida. This is going to be one of those weird exceptions where I don't care if he turns into an All-American. This is a help for Florida. He did not fit in this program for whatever reason. He needed to go. I'm glad he went. It frees up a roster spot that we needed for somebody else. He was never going to work here. It just didn't pan out. Sometimes that happens. Maybe it's an issue with him. Maybe it was an issue with the team. Maybe it was a culture conflict. I don't know. But this guy was not going to work here and really not going to play. I mean, he ended up on the practice squad this year, and he was a 5-star recruit. When you see that happen, that means something's wrong. So he was never going to work here. So regardless of what it turns out for him in his future, and again, all the best to him. He seems like a really quality kid, actually. His parting comments were first class. So all the respect in the world to him. Wish him nothing but the best, and I hope he finds a better situation for himself at Arizona State or again anywhere else he might end up transferring to if that should happen. Wish him nothing but the best, and but it just wasn't going to work here. So this is a help for that reason. Again, regardless of future and potential and everything else, it's kind of one of those oddball situations. So anyway, that's what I got there. What's next on your list?
Yep. Let's say in that spot, DB safety area, Jadarius Perkins.
Yeah, Mr. 2 or 3 games into the season, whatever it was, announcing a transfer, which was super bizarre. Portal wasn't open, and he said he was transferring. That was super weird. But he didn't want to fight Jaden for a roster spot. So, hey, okay. And then he went to Toledo. So that ought to tell you all you need to know, right? Help. Clearly, there was an attitude issue here. Clearly, there was maybe an ego issue here. I don't know what it was, but that didn't need to stay with this team. Again, he showed flashes of brilliance sometimes, quite frankly, but he also had a lot of issues getting lined up and knowing what coverage to be in and play. So It was a hit or miss type of thing, and I don't care if it was hit some of the time or whatever. Again, attitude told me all I needed to know. That's a help.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Because I look at Jadarius kind of like Kamari in a way. Now Jadarius was left over from Mullen, and the one thing that really irked me about Jadarius's comments, his parting comments, thanks to Mullen, nothing about
Yep.
Napier, and so
Yeah,
so
that
so
was
clearly, right? Clearly, not a good fit for culture. So
nope, not at
uh,
all. Yep, agreed. Definitely, maybe one of the last of kind of the poisonous tree there that needed to go. Unfortunately, don't really love saying that in general, but maybe
yeah,
it's the truth. So again, things we can't know, things we can only speculate about. But yeah, right there with you. All right, next up, another from the secondary here, cornerback Jalen Kimber to Louisville.
so head scratcher for me, but because of the amount of help we clearly needed at this position, the refining of this position here, along with almost like with O line was a struggle for me this past fall. So on that basis, for Jalen, despite the fact that of experience and some of those other things that we like from a continuity standpoint, I saw Jalen get trucked way too much this year. Really, really bad. Had me in some nightmare situations. So I'm going to say help for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo here. I think we have enough depth at secondary, both with what was brought in through recruiting, the portal, and what remains, right? Especially now that Marshall has announced he's coming back, that this is a help. Um, what Kimber put on film last year was borderline abysmal most of the time. Every once in a while, he was okay, but clearly his strength is not press man coverage. And that's what Armstrong wants his guys to play, right? We played a ton of it.
You know,
We're going to
yep.
continue to play a ton of it. And Kimber does not excel there. It's not his strength, clearly. I mean, that's just what got put on film. So maybe it's just a bad fit for the system. Um, I don't think he's an untalented dude. The year before in Tony's secondary, he looked great. He was maybe our best corner, him or Devin Moore. They were phenomenal. So really weird to see that juxtaposition there from one year to the next, but he was abysmal this year on film for the most part. So clearly in this scheme, in this system, in this setup with Armstrong, just doesn't work. So got to say help. And again, it doesn't hurt us depth wise significantly. So when we see somebody who is not helping us from a talent standpoint and doesn't kill us on the depth chart, help.
There you go. Yep.
Who's next?
There you go. All right. Let's stay, and that's again same personnel wise. Mr. Jaden Hill.
Oh God. Oh, I can we just not to him? So there's always one. There's always one every year that takes you by surprise, that catches you off guard, and that just sticks the knife straight through your heart. Ever since this started, there has always been one every single year that I'm like, oh no, oh no. And I think for a lot of people that was ETN this year, right? I think for a lot of people that was ETN, and
Yep.
and ETN hurts. I mean, it does. We talked about it. But for me, this is the one that stabbed me right through the gut. I did not see this coming. Took me totally by surprise. I thought he had an outstanding season. I thought he was really, really good. I know he missed some tackles here and there, though I really didn't think it was bad. I know he missed a coverage here or there, but again, really pretty damn solid. Great transition to nickel, stepping up and playing a position he's never played and looking like a veteran doing it, in my opinion. Man, this one hurts me terribly. And it hurts Florida terribly because now we have very little depth at nickel, which is killer. Super important position. And we are now all of a sudden very short on roster depth for it. So this is just a killer all the way around for me. Absolutely, without question, the most brutal one to me on this list. For me, I grant you there are certainly different takes, and some of that is absolutely my opinion. But to me, when you look at the combination of what he put on film last year and all the plays he made, I mean, he was my mid-season superlative for crying out loud. I mean,
Yep.
the guy was really, really good. And it kills us at nickel depth. I'm not saying we can't replace it, but man, we're going to have guys step up. I don't know if, again, a transfer here is, that we just brought in over this past weekend might help us, or, if Sharif is going to end up being the starter there. It's not that we have no one, but it kills us depth wise. It just kills us depth wise. This is a killer. So where are you at with it?
I'm not hurt as much as you are because I know how much you
Yeah.
enjoyed him.
Yep.
But it's still a hurt. I mean, top 4 in the team in tackling, right?
Yep.
25 solo tackles, 14 assisted tackles, right? 40 tackles all in total for the year, 2 sacks, he just had so much to offer, played with great position. He also played with a lot of good speed. His closing speed got so much better
Yeah.
this year. And to see that when we talk about continuity, when we talk about wanting to see that again in double A system, yeah, I'll echo that. Definite hurt, B. Definite hurt.
Did such a good job reading screen passes in the flat on wide receiver
Yeah.
screens, getting off blocks, getting those bubble screens broken up. I mean, I could go on and on, man. That hurts. That just hurts. All right, moving on. Next
Agreed.
up, still in the secondary, last one in the secondary, safety, Miguel Mitchell. Help or hurt?
Help. Again, I think this is one of those things where uh, I hate seeing this position get trucked in this position between Mitchell and Kimber got trucked this past year more than I ever remember that position getting trucked. So on that basis, I think it's a help. Frees up a spot. We need better in there. And again, some people might say, well, he had another year to help and develop and this, that. I tell you what, maybe it was a size thing, maybe it was a speed thing, but just he did not fit in that position for how I thought it should be played.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I thought he was debatably, I can't say the weakest safety on the roster because Moten really underperformed significantly as a
Yeah,
transfer there, but he was the next weakest. By the end of the year, it was 2 freshmen playing back there the bulk of the time, right? It was Thornton and Castell that were playing most of the snaps.
yeah,
That should tell you all you need to know. When you have true freshmen playing safety, that ought to tell you all you need to know. Definitely a help. No questions asked. Again, wish him well, but I don't think talented enough to play in the SEC. Not big enough, not strong enough, not talented enough. It just is what it is. So no hard feelings, but wish him well, and it helps. It helps the roster. So
yep.
who's the
And then
who's the final name there, bud?
the final name outside of Keonta Goodwin, which I guess he went into he departed from the team way back in July, but
Right.
kicker Adam Mahalik.
Yeah. Clearly helps, frees up a special team spot, right? Clearly not our future kicker in any shape, manner, or form. We figured that out very early in the season. Trey came in, did a terrific job. Can't wait to get him back for another year. Yeah, again, wish him well, but not a high level Division I kicker, just not. So helps.
You know what? This was tough for me. Yes, it is a help. Yes, it frees up a spot. Yeah, we can bring a transfer in. We got a couple of walk-ons, right? Trey, of course, is going to come back in 24. He's going to smack crap out the ball, and his percentage is going to be north of 85%. Okay, but Adam, I tell you what, the one of the main things that he did, he kept our national scoring streak alive in the bowl game last year against Oklahoma State or Oregon State. Sorry.
Yep.
So he kept it alive with that last minute field goal, and kudos to him for that. But outside of that, and having a really good ink on the leg, it's a help. Sorry.
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah. No, again, appreciate him for that. No question about it. But yeah, it has to help more than it hurts for losing the guy that kept that streak alive. So,
Yeah.
um, so that's it. That's your list. So I think the good news there is if you go back and look, and I wasn't keeping track, I didn't write it down, but it seems like we said help more than we said hurt, and I think that's a good thing, right? So when you look, this is a long list, right? 21's a lot of players. That's a high number, certainly. But I, if more helped than hurt, that's a good thing, right? Because it does free up roster spots for, again, incoming scholarship players, other transfer guys that we can pick up as we already have. Um, you know, at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing in a lot of cases, and that's why this is somewhat important now as a piece of this. So, one thing I do want to discuss before we move on to how the portal looks now and how it's different in the current day of NIL recruiting is, does it matter where any of these players went or where they might go? I guess we won't have to talk about might go because obviously we don't know in those cases, but where some of these guys signed, does that matter? Does it make a difference that Etienne went to Georgia? Does it make a difference that, Princely went to Ole Miss? Does it make a difference, as you mentioned, that McClellan went to Missouri? Teams that we know well and will play next season and will face these guys. Does it make a difference that Scooby and Hill went to Florida West? I'm going to call them that for the rest of the year, by the way.
Fair enough.
They took all our players, they took all our coaches. I'm going to call them that. So, which good luck to them with that, because we weren't exactly the most talented squad. But hey, if it works for you,
Hey, one man's trash.
I guess we'll see. But does it matter? And if so, where and how? Your thoughts?
Yeah. For the record, we had 15 help, 6 hurt, and out of all of those, we disagreed on 3 of them. So, food for thought.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. I love
Yeah.
that you could keep the record of that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Um,
15 help. Really? That's more than I thought. Wow. That's wow. Okay.
yeah, coming into this I thought we were going to be about 50-50, about, 10-11, split kind of that way,
Huh.
but
Interesting.
no,
Okay. All right. Good
more
to know.
help than more help than hurt. Um,
Okay.
Here's the thing. 2024 is going to be interesting because of the quote unquote new SEC, right? But outside of that, when you look at the schedule, um, Florida, Georgia is Florida, Georgia. So where if the rumors are true, well, it depends on which rumor you listen to, right? If Big Bro said to Little Bro, "Hey, Little Bro, not sure how much time you're going to have in the league. Get your money while you can get your money. Get it while it's good." Okay.
Yep.
Um, is it playing time? Let's be honest. Trevor, for his third fall at UF, was going to be a featured back. Period. Because especially with the season he just had. So
Yep.
that's that's just a sting. Here's the thing: to go to a rival, it's almost like going to a Georgia or an FSU is just like, really, after you just wore orange and blue for more than 2 years, a substantial amount of time. Um, so anyways, that one is, so that one's going to be a tough one. Yeah, you're going to Charlotte, you're going to go over there with Biff and go sleeveless, fine, no problem. Eastern Michigan, Texas Tech, no problem. Kentucky, that's fine, whatever, enjoy it. But Princely at Ole Miss, we play Ole Miss next fall, or this fall
Yeah.
coming, right? Missouri's don't get me wrong, Missouri had a lot of juniors and seniors they've got to replace, but Missouri's going to be strong again. Old Eli up there, whatever they're drinking in the base of the Ozarks, they're going to have a team that's competitive and ready to go. So from that perspective of a Georgia, of an Ole Miss, of a Missouri, of a Florida West, love it, of a Florida West, and sure, Florida. I mean, look at Texas A&M right now and what they just had to go the overhaul that they've had to have with Jimbo
Yep.
Fisher, and then Mike Elko. No disrespect to him, sounds like a great guy. Had a little bit of success at Duke. Could have upset FSU at FSU, but that fell apart because their star QB Riley Leonard twisted his ankle, couldn't finish the game. That is what it is. But some of those are definitely going to be really, really tough, seeing those players on the opposite side of the football. Wish them well, but at the same time, if they don't play for whatever reason, or if NIL monies don't work out, if contracts don't work out, if personnel with coaching and staff and the organization doesn't work out, I'm not going to be mad. Sorry.
So to answer the root question, does it matter where?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think my answer is yes too, again, in certain cases. And I think really for me, really, if I really break it down, if I really sit here and I really think about it, and I'm really worried about it, the only one that really matters where they went is Trevor. He's
Sure.
actually the only one, if I'm really going to be honest. All the rest of them, yeah, I know some of them went to SEC schools. Yeah, I know some of them went to SEC schools that were playing next year, right? Okay, like that's fine. they're, especially like you said, with the way the SEC works, yeah, they happen to be on the schedule next year, but they just as well may not have been, right? Like, yes, they are, but I don't think that had anything to do with their decision, right? Like, I don't think they're going there because they get a revenge game or something. Like, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I would be shocked if it did. If it did,
Yeah.
shame on them, and I hope that they get schooled for it. But I really don't think that's the case. So the one that matters to me is Trevor, as in where he went. That one is brutal, just brutal. Um, Literally, top two rival, right? I mean, it's them or FSU that is
Yep.
the considered the biggest rival, right? Um, that's brutal. That hurts bad. The only thing that would have upset me more would have been FSU. Um, that
Yeah.
is that is pretty terrible and pretty hard to swallow. Um, I'd have rather him gone to Bama, and I loathe Bama, but they're
Whoa,
not really
damn.
our rival, right? They're not technically our rival, and
Correct. Correct.
so at the end of the day, that one just stings bad. I will say right now, I hope that he does not have a good game against us when we play them. Unfortunately, he probably will, but I hope he doesn't. I hope that defense does come to play the way I think they can next year and we shut him down.
Hmm.
That's what I'll
Hmm.
be rooting for. Sorry, it is what it is. Sorry, not sorry, quite frankly. So, yeah, that one matters to me. The rest of them, no, it doesn't really matter. They're no longer with us. Again, for whatever the reason, for whatever the motivation, whether it's NIL or something else, uh, I don't really care where they've gone for the most part. But that one's going to stick in the craw, and I hope it sticks in the craw of some of the guys at Florida. Quite frankly,
Oh, it's got to, because it's not for
I would
quality
I
of
would think
education.
so. I would think so. So, all right, with that, let's move it along. Next topic here:
Come on.
importance of the portal now that NIL factors into recruiting the way that it does. So, what do we mean by that, right? Well, we've talked about a lot with the last pod about how much NIL played a factor in recruiting, right? It just did, period. Right. And for the record, obviously it factors into the portal as well. There's no question. However, um, the way that this works, I think, is really important to discuss. So let me get your thoughts. I'll open it up to you first. How important is this now, and where does it factor in the grand scheme of things, I guess I'll say? And what's your take on this? Just give me kind of your whole picture of where the portal fits in to college football now, or maybe we'll dial that back. Maybe not college football, but maybe let's look at it from the Gator perspective, right? How does it fit into Florida football now, considering NIL and what we know about how Florida is and isn't going to leverage NIL in recruiting?
We got about 4 hours. um, so no, and I say that loosely, just tongue in cheek.
we
Uh,
could we could take 4 hours, but no, we
yeah, we
don't. We
really
have
can.
about 30
Yeah,
minutes.
exactly. For me, so you said the transfer portal went live in 2018. Okay, fine. It's supposed to be a
In its
private
in its
list.
current in its current iteration, yes.
Yeah,
Technically, it
yeah, yeah,
existed
yeah.
before that, but it was very limited.
That's right, right? Power to the players. Well, not just the game players, but this private list is not so private. 48 hours for the school to post, to report the player going into the portal, fine, all that. NIL, right? In its inception, like, okay, it's coming in 19 and 20, and COVID delayed, and July 1st at 21 it became a reality, right? And this is what's tough about the portal and NIL. I'm just going to group them together, just for
Sure.
my clarity and understanding.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
me, this now thins the line between pro sports and college. Really thins the line. When you look at the NCAA's position on NIL, and the deals must be based on a quid pro quo type arrangement. The athletes are going to appear in a commercial or have an endorsement to a product or do a social media deal or a commercial or whatever the case might be.
Yep.
How are we policing that? That's going to be a rhetorical question because good Lord, right? Then you look at the other aspect of what NCAA stands for, right? National Collegiate Athletic Association. So when you look at from a collegiate standpoint, and especially when you look at it from an amateur standpoint, you look at it in the sense of now our college athletes, are they employees? What does that look like? I mean, they're student athletes. It actually should be athletic students,
Not right.
especially when you look at some programs. Let's be honest. Most of these players that are 5-star, 4-star, that are doing very well, that are gifted, that are physically gifted, like I am not, and I'm very, very salty about that. But seriously, they're not going there to study sociology. They're not going there to study human relations. They play football. They're going to study football. They're going to play baseball. They go to play baseball, study baseball. Period. And
Hey,
so that's what's tough, to separate, to delineate those two things. And then you've got some people clamoring for, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, oh yeah, of course that they should be paid for their time related to their sport. Really? And okay, let's throw more into the pot. Let's throw the collective in. Now, what's the collective? Now schools have collectives. Now, all of a sudden, they've popped up all over the country, right? Now you went from 0 to 150 plus collectives all over. And all the collective's objective is, we need what? Money. We need money. We need money to, going back. I know we said it before, B, but what did Nick Nolte say in Blue Chips? He's got the best players money can buy.
yep.
Well, guess what? It's becoming a reality. Who'd have thought he was Nostradamus in the early 90s? You
Yeah.
know? So, and the other thing that we talk about is rules. What rules? I mean, the reality is what is NIL? Is it a pay for play model? Is it NIL? Is it an endorsement? Am I going to have you? I was there, a local coffee shop in Gainesville, Iliano's Coffee, great little coffee shop, family run, started in Lake City years ago. Trevor's out there in the parking lot when they opened their newest location this fall in Gainesville. He's out there, he's signing autographs. He's got the smile on, this, that, and the other. And he did his time. He showed up for what, a couple hours? That's it. And what did he get paid? Whatever the amount he got paid, right? And the other thing that we're seeing is athletes on visits. Hey, how much are we getting paid for this visit? Well, what do you mean? We're
Mhm.
rolling out the red carpet. You're getting fed. You're getting this. You're getting
Yep.
that. And yeah, but how much am I getting paid for coming to see you guys, right? High schoolers being contacted through their coaches, their high school coaches, getting leverage to ask, hey, so well, what if you had this number thrown out here? And right, how do you police that? Especially when you look at the rules of engagement. Going back to what happened, especially, and I'm going to name our two stars, especially with Princely and especially with Trevor Etienne. When you look at those two scenarios and you look at the transfer portal and you look at what a school is supposed to do to respect the player, respect the institution, and wait till the player declares for the portal to not tamper, you absolutely knew these guys were tampered with. But how do you police that? How do you enforce that? I'm sorry, I'm just going to wrap it up real quick. You can tell my frustration in my voice. It's just so tough because the importance of it has just changed the game. When Pandora's box opened, they really didn't know what the hell they were opening. And it's open and it's tough. You can't do anything but now except for to try and steer it some way, shape, or form back on the rails. And even that's going to take a few years to do.
So I agree with everything you say in regards to NIL, no question, and I think that's kind of the point that we're trying to get after here. But I don't want to say put that aside because you can't put it aside, right? That's a part of the question. But
Yeah.
as it relates to how you think Florida should leverage the portal, right? Because Billy's made it clear, I think, at least in the past, maybe not as much this season from what he started to do with it, but in the past, that he doesn't really want to leverage the portal that much, right? He's not high on that idea from a standpoint of players coming in, right? Forget players going out for purposes of this conversation. Um, he doesn't really want to do it that much for players coming in. So what again, that's been his take, but I think you're seeing that starting to shift.
Has to.
That's
Yeah.
my opinion. But based on the fact that we have 9 already and we're looking for more, that's a lot, right? It's not a lot, but it's a fair amount, and we're looking to increase that number. Um, it's getting to be, a fair amount.
It's significant.
What are your thoughts? Just briefly, I guess, in what Florida should be doing. How much should we be leveraging the portal, considering the NIL challenges that are out there in recruiting, in the portal, costing us players, right? How much should we be leveraging it? How much is enough? How much is too much? You don't have to answer all that, but just, what do you think in regards to that? I'm curious.
The bottom line is Florida is at the bottom of the list, mid bottom of the list in the SEC when it comes to their collective and the amount of monies raised through it.
Yep. Yep.
So based off of that, and based off the fact that Florida is known as an institution to try to do it the right way and not to tamper and not to just throw money, regardless of what was said and not said.
Yep.
They have to be more, I would say portal heavy, portal friendly. I'll just say portal friendly.
Portal friendly. I like that.
Yes, portal friendly, because here's the thing. If you can't go out and throw the dollars and get the commitments to go that way, we all know how the deal with Rashada worked out years ago, right? It's funny, he's at ASU and a couple other players are going to ASU. Enjoy that. But clearly, if we don't have the capital, yeah, we don't have the capital to put behind it. Okay, fine. We've got to get creative. And if Billy can really put his CEO hat on and build out this staff and build out the system and build out this quote unquote NFL style front office that he wants to, we should have some people with connections, with abilities to go to the portal and go, you know what? Look at this kid here. Look at what we found. Right. And you're able to be strategic and play chess, not just checkers, in the portal and be portal friendly that way.
I like it. I like it. So I'm of a similar mind. And I think there is space there for improvement based on what we've seen. Now, we've seen some really good additions through the portal, right? Has to stand out, Graham Mertz, right? Ricky's great too, clearly, but Graham has to be the shining star here because of the improvement, right? Ricky didn't come here and elevate his game to like levels far above what he was doing. He was already a solid route runner. He was already a solid pass catcher, right? Now, did he elevate his game to a degree? Yeah, absolutely. He's better at Florida than he was at ironically Arizona State.
Yeah.
Ironically, but he elevated his game. But was it the monumental turnaround that Graham Mertz saw? No. I don't think we've seen very much that resembled that. And frankly, I think if you look historically at portal quarterbacks that have transferred and had success, their real success has come in year 2. Just food for thought on that. Joe Burrow is a name I'll bring up to you. I'm not saying Graham Mertz is going to be Joe Burrow next year, but it's just an example. Burrow's first year at LSU was good, not great, and then we all know what happened his second year. Just throw that out there. I'm not suggesting that Mertz is going to be Burrow next year. No way, no shape, form, or fashion am I suggesting that. However,
Okay,
the understanding and command of the offense in year 2 does tend to be better. My point is we have certainly had portal successes. We have also, however, had a bunch of portal failures. Already mentioned Moton, named Deuce Spurlock. Do anything for you? Yeah, that's another Michigan transfer.
Ouch.
We got the guys that Michigan didn't need to win the title, just so we're clear.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch is right. So yeah, those guys did not work out. And there were a couple others. Obviously, the whole Keontae Goodwin thing, but that had nothing to do with his talent. That was a personal situation. I feel bad for the kid. I hope he can find his way back to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
uh, and there are some others that have been, kind of hit or miss. George comes to mind, right? Um, very few have been to the level that Mertz has been. Torrance probably, but Torrance was already pretty good when he came in. Obviously, he elevated it to another level at Florida, but he was already pretty solid. That was kind of one of those COVID sneaks, right? One of those guys that went under the radar with recruiting. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I think it's absolutely a necessity. This has become, you related earlier to similarity to pro sports, right? I would do the same. It's
Yeah.
become the free agency market, right? The portal is now free agency in college, right? For
Yep.
any of you who watch any pro sports, there's always a free agency market that's out there, right? That's what this is now. This is college free agency is the portal. That's what it is, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's not a difficult concept to make sense. And NIL is still a factor in it, as you mentioned, right? It's clearly a factor. Tampering, right? These things are all happening. Guys going to different schools for bigger deals, better deals, whatever the case might be. That's absolutely a factor, and it plays in. And it's certainly why there are certain recruits that, aren't giving us the time. Judkins out of Ole Miss. Why would you not want to come to Florida when you look at the priority we put on running backs? Why would that not be on your list of places to visit?
Mm-hmm.
Let me assure you, he is not coming here to visit. Period. Won't happen because we are not making the NIL deal that he wants to see. Let me make that perfectly clear. We will not see him on campus. He will not be coming here. Now, it's interesting that he went to Ohio State because Ohio State is not necessarily doing those things with NIL either. So that one was a little head scratching for me, but I don't think he ends up there. I think he ends up at one of the other places he's going to, regardless. NIL is still clearly a factor, and it's going to continue to be a factor. And depending on the player and what they're after in the portal, whether you're I'll throw a little shade and say whether you're a ETN or whether you're a Joey Slackman, there might be different priorities in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw that out there because I don't think Slackman came here because he wanted NIL money. I think he came here because he still wanted a very high quality education coming from an Ivy League university.
Yep.
But he wanted to get Power 5 visibility for his football skills to potentially see where that could go in his career development in football. And he could get both at the University of Florida. So that's one that worked out great for us. That was like a slam dunk hit for us, and I love that we got him because the kid looks phenomenal. So that's a great example of where Florida can win, right? But those are few and far between. Let's be honest. Not many kids prioritize that to that level. There are some, but it's not the prevailing thing. So how is it best leveraged, right? How can Florida best leverage this? Well, you have to be careful, right? You have to be careful. You don't want to be the Rams in their Super Bowl run, in my opinion, right? So this is the analogy that I'll make here. So if you think back a couple of years when the Rams went on their Super Bowl run, they had a very talented team. They had a team that had a chance to make a run in the postseason and really give it a go. And what did they do? They literally mortgaged the farm for one season, right? They went out, they got Von Miller, right? They went out, they got God, who else did they pick up that? Oh, they got Odell Beckham that season, right? They went out, they just picked up all these free agency studs, right? Miller, Beckham. I think they picked up another big time offensive lineman that year. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. They just went out and made a huge splash in free agency when they realized that they had a legit shot to make a run at the title. And P.S., by the way, the Super Bowl was being played in LA that year. And they made the run at it. And guess what? They won. And what happened the next season?
Fell apart.
When that team fell apart. Now, I'll give you, Stafford got hurt the next year. They weren't the same team. Kupp got hurt the next year. They weren't the same team. Fair enough. But they lost Miller the next season. They lost Beckham the next season. They weren't the same team, not even close. So let me draw you a college comparison. FSU. What did FSU do last season? They went out and they slammed the portal. Absolutely crushed it. Everybody was, oh, look at FSU in the portal. Man, they're just killing it. And they did. And they built a great team off it for 1 year. And when it didn't work out, through no fault of their own, in fairness, through no fault of their own, I won't fault them for Travis getting hurt. It's not their fault. However, when it didn't work out, what happened to that team? Is there any loyalty there? How many opt-outs did they have? Good Lord. I thought Florida had a lot against Oklahoma State. Or against Oklahoma, excuse me, 3 years ago. We didn't hold a candle to the opt-outs that Florida State had against Georgia. Holy shnikes. Good grief. That's what you don't want. Let me be clear. I'll say it again. That's what you don't want. But that's what building your team through hiring a bunch of one-year mercenaries will get you. Sorry, that's what they did. I'm not saying there isn't benefit in growing your team strategically through the portal, growing your class, whether it be with guys with multiple years of eligibility or single years of eligibility, right? We've picked up a handful of guys already this year through the portal. They only have 1 year left, right? Bridges only had 1 year left. Dixon only has 1 year left, right? There's a couple of guys that only have 1 year eligibility left. That's fine. That's fine. Because they're guys that are going to come in. They're likely going to play for us next year. They're maybe even going to start for us next year. I should say, I'm certain they're going to play. They're likely going to start, and they're going to contribute, and they're going to help this team next year be better. That's what you want. But you don't want to build your core of your roster off it. That's not the goal. So there has to be a balance. You still need to build the foundation of your team through recruiting at the high school level. You can't build it off the transfer portal. Not and be successful in the long term. You just can't. You've got to be strategic. You've got to fit the pieces in where it makes sense, which I think we have this year done a much better job of. Last year, yeah, we did it okay in some places, and we fell very short in others, quite frankly. We fell way short at linebacker last year in the transfer portal. The 2 transfer portal acquisitions we had last year at linebacker, not good enough. This year, we have 1, and I love it. So on paper, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. So that's just one position, granted, but there's a ton of things that so far have really made sense. They're good acquisitions, whether they have 1 year or multiple years of eligibility. I think it's terrific what Napier is going for and how he is approaching this season. Last season raised some question marks for me. This year, I think it's a lot better, and I think he's doing a really good job to supplement the class. I hope he continues to do so. There's a few more positions I'd like to see. We'll get into that in another time. But at the end of the day, I really think that so far, I got nothing but good things to say. If he rounds this thing out with a couple more solid additions at a few more places, I think it's like an A+ grade from my book. So that's what I think you really want to do here, is use it to supplement your recruiting class, especially, again, if you're in Florida's position where you're not going to be able to sling those NIL dollars like some of these other teams, to the point that you so well made, right? So with that, we'll close that segment out. We'll move on to this kind of final piece, just have a quick little conversation around this topic. How do you define who's a Gator now? So with all this talk of the transfer portal and guys that are here for a couple of years and then leave, or guys that weren't here for a couple of years and then come in, who's a Gator anymore? How do you define it? What's your definition? Hit me with it. What do you got?
Yeah. B, I don't even know if I have a definition. This is what was tough for me when we first talked about the subject, right? A while back. When you look at the example of ETN, 2 examples, right? ETN, Mertz.
Yep.
So here's Trevor. Trevor started with us. 2 years wearing orange and blue, 2 seasons. Now he's going to go and wear red and black. Ugh.
Yeah, for real.
It's hard not to say he's a Gator, but Here's the other thing too. He can go to Georgia and play another 2 years at Georgia. Will he be considered a Bulldog? So you look at that. You look at Mertz. Mertz spent 3 seasons over there in Wisconsin. Comes down here, 1 season. Oh, he's a Gator through and through, orange and blue. He's been quoted saying, most fun I ever had, this, that, and the other, the system, the weather. As a good friend of mine from Wisconsin says, you never have to shovel sunshine. It's fair. I believe it. So the other thing that we look at is from a definition standpoint. Okay, so you asked me, how do you define it? Well, is it the school that you identify with the most? The alma mater, the mascot, the program, the system? Is it the school that you chose first coming out of high school? Could it be the school that you end up with? Because Graham spent 3 years in Wisconsin for all intents and purposes. And when you look at it from an undergraduate and graduate standpoint, okay, undergrad, he did Wisconsin, graduate, he did Florida. He's a Badger and a Gator. Right? So what is it really based off of? It's such a subjective thing. Nobody really knows. So let's say Trevor, let me go back to Trevor real quick. Trevor spent 2 years in the orange and blue. Let's say he's going to Georgia. Let's say he doesn't play next year. Let's say he gets injured. Let's say he ends up fizzling out and he transfers again. Is he still considered a Gator because he barely had a career at Georgia? What does that look like? Even better, if he fizzles out there and he wants to come back to Florida, do we take him back? I don't know. So anyways, that's what's tough for me defining. Is it where you start your career? Is it where you end your career? Is it where you had the most success and the most notoriety in your career? That's what's tough there for me. And those are some of the criteria that I've looked at and still scratch my head at a couple different things. But in a situation like Graham, it's hard not to think of him as a Badger because he spent 3 seasons there. But again, we'll see what this fall yields for him in the orange and blue.
Yeah, so you make a lot of really good points there, and it's really tough. Let me throw one other little question at you before I respond. What if you were a guy like Richie Leonard who spent 4 years here, got your diploma, and then graduate transferred?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was another point that through my chicken scratch I couldn't read. Exactly. Yeah. What if you did get your you graduated, you got your degree, and then it's like, how could you not be considered a Gator, right? That's your alma mater. That's what the paper says. Like so yeah, that has to factor in 100%.
Yeah, I agree. So this is really hard, and I agree. It's super subjective, and I think no matter what you place as a definition here, it's always subject to interpretation and opinion and everything else. I would say, to answer my own question with Leonard, I think he is a Gator. No matter wherever he goes for this last season that he has of eligibility, I think he's still a Gator. He played 4 years here, or was on the team for 4 years, graduated from here, right? To me, that makes him a Gator. That is enough to qualify him as being a Gator, no matter where else he goes. And for the record, I don't have a problem if he goes and claims the other school that he goes and plays at this year, assuming that he does transfer somewhere, right? I don't have a problem if he claims both. He can still claim being a Gator. But to your question, or to the question of Etienne and Mertz, right? This is a good one, right? So let's say Etienne gets 2 years at Georgia, or even a year, and Mertz has 2 here and 3 at Wisconsin. It's really tough, right? It's really tough. Because as a Gator, or as Gators, right, we are much more prone to think of Mertz as a Gator than we are Etienne, right? Because of how he finished, rather than how he started, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if we're being objective and not subjective, how do you differentiate that? How do you do it? Right? So it becomes a really hard question. And that's the downside that the portal creates here, right? Because Trevor gave us 2 really good years. 700 plus carry seasons as a split time back. That's dynamite. And a lot of good highlight reels to go along with it. So regardless of what he goes and does from here, you can't discredit the 2 years that he had with us. Because if you did, then you have to discredit anything Mertz does with us for the 2 years he's here. Because otherwise you're using a complete double standard that's totally unfair. So it becomes super hard because I don't want to think of him as a Gator when he's wearing red and black next year. That's the last thing I want to do. Right? We talked about it. We talked about how much it matters that he went there. So it's hard. It's really hard. The portal is making not only the loyalty of players, but I think to a degree the loyalty of fans, not to their school, but the loyalty of fans to players, right? Really difficult. It's really difficult. It's making the fan experience of college football more difficult, which is tough. That's a tough pill to swallow. And that would be my take, is that no matter how you define it, it ain't defined like it used to be. And it's a hell of a lot harder to have your heroes that you used to be able to have for 4 or 5 years, depending on whether or not they redshirted, right? Or in, Ventrell Miller's case, whether they redshirted and then got hurt and then had a medical exemption and played for 7 years. I'm just kidding. I know it was 6. But
yeah. There you go.
Yet it's hard to have those guys anymore because they're going to be so few and far between. They're just going to be so few and far between to have stars that stay. Stars that stay is going to be a commodity that I think is not non-existent, but man, it'll be very prized as we go forward, assuming that all this continues. Now, again, maybe it doesn't continue. We talked about it. Maybe it gets legislated as far as NIL goes. But at the end of the day, even if it does, I think you're still going to see a lot of transfers and a lot of movement, even if it is less than what we're dealing with right now. And that's a tough pill to swallow as a fan that only gets 4 years out of their best guys as it is. And now maybe you get 2. That's tough.
Very.
So on that fun note, we're going to end this. But no, really enjoyed the discussion around this. I think it's a really important topic. Obviously it's a big part of college football today and will be, at least for the foreseeable future. So I think it's important that we have conversations around it and talk about the importance of it and how it factors in. So really enjoyed having the conversation with you. And having some discussion around it and how I think we can, benefit from it, but also, some of the perils of it, because it's definitely a dual-edged sword. There's no two ways about it. So, any other thoughts you have before we close this thing out?
That's it, man. Enjoy the convo. Really, again, we're not short for content, so that's good. And then just look forward to the next one in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so good point. Very, very valid to bring up. We neglected to do this on the last one, so apologies for that. But we should have another episode here coming out. The plan is to kind of do one every couple of weeks here in the off season. So we'll have a various different topics that we're kind of going to go through in the off season. Some directly relating to the team, some just kind of relating to Florida football as a whole. So there'll be various different topics. Not 100% decided on what the next one will be, so we won't announce that at this point. But I think some pretty cool content that we've got in store and in mind going forward. So look forward to bringing that to you and continuing to kind of talk through some of the news and events of the off season, but also just some kind of takes on Florida, both from a current standpoint, but maybe also a little bit from a historical one, as well as some of the stuff that we're going to, kind of talk through and how that maybe factors into expectations is kind of a preview of one of the things that we're going to talk about. So at any rate, yes, 2 weeks, actually probably a week and 6 days, because we did record this one on a Tuesday and we usually do on Mondays. So probably look forward to doing that on oh gosh, I don't know the date, but I think it's the 21st, maybe off the top of my head. But regardless, no, it's the 23rd, I think. But anyway, regardless of the date, it'll be 2 weeks from yesterday, whatever that date is. I'm not looking at a calendar, so don't hold me to it. But but
23rd looks good.
we'll have you we'll have another one for you then, and we look forward to talking with you at that point. But until then, wherever you are and whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we'll see you around, Gator Nation.